Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about upgrading your tile installation with the use of a miter cut. Now, a miter cut can be chosen in place of a trim piece. And while it is an upgraded technique, I think with a little bit of information and a patience, you can do it. If you don't know me, my name is Craig. I was a tile installer for over 20 years, and I am here to help you walk through this process. So what is a miter? A miter is simply cutting material, normally at a 45-degree angle, to go around a corner. This can give your corner a seamless look. There are a couple different types of miters. You've got your straight 45. I used to use a quirk miter a lot in the stone industry. What are you gonna need for this installation? Obviously, you've got a tile project that you're doing, and so the tile you've got. While you're working through your installation, if you've got some offcuts or scrap tiles that are broken, keep those. Those are good to practice with. We're gonna cut our miters using two methods. One is with an angle grinder, and the other is with a wet saw. So you're gonna need those also. And with those pieces of equipment, you're gonna need a great diamond blade. In addition to that, you're gonna need some sanding pads. That's an extra step, will really elevate your corner and your cut. Most of the time you can find sanding pads that'll fit on your grinder, or you can do it by hand. The grinder tends to be a little easier though. Let's not forget about a basic sponge and some water just to use for cleanup, and then our safety tools. We're gonna use eye protection when cutting, and then we're also gonna use gloves. These protect our hands from those sharp pieces of tile. I hope you're getting value from this video, and before you turn the corner on your miter, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps. Now that we have our tools under control, let's get started on making the cuts. The first thing you want to do is very similar to starting a tile project. You want to make sure your layout's correct. So you want to take your trim piece that's going to turn the corner and get it cut to the right size. So we're cutting the tile piece a little oversized so that they can meet together, and then we're going to cut those edges that meet to the appropriate angle so that they fit together. The next step is marking the cut. That's just a guideline to help you when you're making your cut, and that's useful for the angle grinder or the wet saw. But here's a trick, a pro tip. Don't cut all the way to the face of the tile. Leave a little meat there so that when you're cutting, your blade doesn't chip the finish. Even though there's a little space at the top of the tile, this will give you a lot better finish once complete. The next step is cutting. You may think, hey, I'm just gonna cut along the line and be done. But I found it better to cut in small sections, score the tile first, and then use a couple of different passes to go through the tile, working it back and forth. That puts less stress on the tile, and you have a greater chance of finishing your cut without breaking the material. Now that you've got your cut where you want it, you want to take your polishing pads and kind of finish everything out. This will also take off that little bit extra close to the face of your tile to make sure that fits together perfectly. These polishing pads are great for just removing and fine-tuning your cut. And that's how you cut it with an angle grinder. A little pro tip, take your time. There's no hurry. If you want to, go ahead and mark all of your cuts up and down the out corner transition. You can do all your cuts at one time, do all your polishing at one time. That'll save you time in the long run, but don't get ahead of yourself. The next technique is cutting your miter with a wet saw. Now the first couple of steps are the same. You're gonna wanna make sure you've got the right size tile before you start, and you still want to make that mark on your tile that's short of the face of the tile. Here's where things change a little bit. There are 1,000 different types of wet saws out there. A lot of them have a head, the cutting head will be able to turn over. This makes cutting your miter very easy. So you undo your head, lean it over to the 45 degree, and then you can make a normal cut and it'll be mitering your tile. If you don't have a wet saw that's got a turnable head, I suggest you drop back to the angle grinder. You're gonna have a lot better chance of getting a better cut. The key with cutting with a wet saw is the same as cutting a straight cut. Make sure you take it slow, make sure water flow is good, and after you finish your cuts, again, I suggest taking those rubbing stones or the polishing pads and just run across them. The great thing about a wet saw, it's gonna have a straight cut and it's gonna be uniform. Now that we've got all of our cuts mitered and are ready to install it, you want to first of all make sure you have the right angle on your wall. Substrate is key. If you need to have some patching or anything done, let's go ahead and do that to get your corner the way you want it before you install it. Then let's test fit everything. Dry fit is your friend. Get your corners on there on both sides, adjust them. Make sure it's creating the transition that you want. Now that you're happy with how it looks in a dry fit, let's go ahead and mix up our mortar or get our adhesive ready and use our proper technique to getting that on the wall. A little tip, often when creating a mitered corner, you'll have an air gap at that corner and it's a little hollow spot. You want to make sure you fill that hollow spot with some extra mortar or thin set or adhesive. This gives you some protection if somebody bumps into the wall. It gives the substrate some structure, and hopefully your corner or your tiles won't break there. Now that you've got your mortar and that gap covered, push in your tile, and often because you put some extra material, you could have some squeeze out. You want to make sure you get that cleaned out before you move on. Once again, taking your time, working up the wall, making sure that your corner is plumb and straight and your miters look good. Sometimes using some spacers or wedges are a great benefit in keeping everything together. Now that your miter is installed, you can grout it. Now, there are a couple different ways to finish this outside corner. Grouting is one of them. The other option is you can use a movement sealant like a silicone that either matches your grout or matches your tile. That's a great technique also. There is an upgraded technique and you can use some epoxy. There are a lot of different types of epoxies out there that you can color match to make that corner disappear and look like one piece of tile. But we're just gonna grout it. We're gonna put our grout in, make sure it's packed in tight into that corner so it's super strong. Clean it, and it's complete. And there you have it, a perfectly mitered corner. I hope it went well. I hope these tips and tricks helped you through it. Now you have a finished installation that really looks like a pro, and you did it yourself. If you have further questions, please leave some comments. If you think you're overwhelmed, well, check out this video right here and find a trim that'll match that corner for you. Let's keep learning together and tile the world.